and welcome to Sunday afternoon with Hebden Bridge Open Studios. We have a discussion amongst several wildlife-inspired artists and makers this afternoon. I'm a sculptor making mostly bronzes and ceramics. We have Sheila Tilmouth, Pam Crofts, Toby Cotterill, and Hannah Lawson. We're going to kind of do a show and tell, go around the table, give you an idea of the kind of work that we make, and then get into a bit of a discussion about how we feel about our art and environmentalism, inspiration. We'll just see where it goes, really. So shall I go over to you first, Hannah, if you're ready with your show and tell?
Yeah, I could do that. So, as John said, my name's Hannah Lawson, and I'm actually work, as well as doing art in Hebden Bridge, I actually work as an expedition guide and wildlife guide working on expedition cruise ships. And this is a picture of one of the cruise ships that I work on currently. It's called the Hebridean Sky. And I'm very lucky in that I get to go to Antarctica and the Arctic every year. I've been doing that now since 1999. Working on cruise ships, and yeah, this is a picture from Antarctica. Yeah, so as well as doing artwork, I work as a guide, and that then inspires my art back home. So I do Antarctica. I would be normally going to Antarctica at the end of this month. The season's been cancelled this year, and I haven't done any trips since March, but I'll hopefully be heading off again next spring and summer. When I'm away, this is me in the middle there driving the boat. We drive Zodiac landing boats that we take people ashore with, and we do cruises with them, and we get to see some amazing wildlife. This is me saying hello to a walrus up in Svalbard in Spitsbergen. I would have been there this summer if there hadn't been the virus. I've been doing that every summer for about 18 years, and it's really remarkable that you can get these close approaches with the wild animals. And then the things that I see then inspire me. So this is a king penguin colony in South Georgia. It's one of the most amazing places to visit. It's a bit like you go there and you just think you're sort of David Attenborough on land. And it's just seas of penguins. Every single one is exquisite, and there's maybe 100,000 of them. And they then do come back, and I used to do a lot of mural art and giant paintings, and I now do a lot of wood engraving. So this is a full screen of a wood engraving, but in reality it's about, I don't know, about 3 inches by 4 inches, so very, very small. So about 10 centimetres by 15 centimetre wood engravings. And here the walruses. So it's a sort of, I take a lot of photographs as well that I then use as reference, but I sort of make up designs a little bit as well. I now have a studio at home. I've got an Albion press, which I'm very lucky to have. So this is like my little home studio. I call it the hand shed out in our yard. And yeah, just sit and do my little wood engravings. And then one of the other things that I do quite a lot is illustrated sea charts. So this is with watercolor onto a map of this is South Georgia and Antarctica, South America. So this will be like a cruise that I do quite regularly each year, and then I do the wildlife that I get to see when I'm traveling onto a sea chart. And I do these as commissions, but also we auction them every trip I do one, and then they get auctioned for charities for raising money for conservation or wildlife awareness, or things like the South Georgia Heritage Trust, where they've done a big rat eradication project on South Georgia. So that's what I do with that. And this is one that I'm doing right now. This is a little section of one, which is going to be, I'm going to actually make into prints. I'll try and get it. I'm going to get it giclée prints of this one, which I'm doing just now. And then I'd say normally I'd be up during the northern summer, the boreal summer up in the Arctic as well. I get to see polar bears. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me and about some of the work that I do.
Oh, it's fascinating. I mean, we could have done a broadcast just with your photographs from your travels, Hannah. Maybe that's something we do a different time, because I've seen a lot of your photos and they're absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we go over to Toby? Are you ready with your images? Because you've got a little video as well, haven't you, to start things?
I've got a little animation as well. Yeah. So I'm Toby Cotterill. I'm a jeweler and silversmith. I do sort of traditional and non-traditional wedding rings and engagement rings and that kind of and commissions. So that's probably about half my practice. And then but the things that I really like doing, I am inspired by the natural world and by insects and sea creatures and by the process of making. So this is an articulated bracelet. I did a series of 2 of these, which are they're fully articulated, but they've got spring holding all the sections together, which is like a special alloy, which I had to have specially made with the help of an engineering firm, and that sort of holds the bracelet onto the wrist. And so yeah, a lot of my work is articulated. These are quite popular. I do like a series of 2 or 3 or 4 sectioned little articulated little bugs that hang around the neck. I use lots of different silversmithing techniques, quite traditional, but it's all very sort of everything's sort of handmade and hand done from sheet silver. Cufflinks. This is one of the biggest pieces I've made, which kind of like evolved on the workbench really. It's sort of I'm bringing these forms from natural history inspired, you know, and these animals and things, but then I kind of like I'm putting them round the body. This was quite directly inspired by crustacean limbs, and they all hinge differently, all their limbs. Obviously they've got a hard skeleton, so in order for them to move they're really immovable. If you've ever picked one up, and the way they can always reach around and try and grab you, nip your fingers, you know. So they're very mobile, and so all these sections are jointed and separate in different ways to get these sections around the body. So it kind of falls this way and then falls down the neck. So these are some pictures from a different studio actually, but same bench. So again, it's like a lot of it is hand forging from sheet silver, and I build up these 3-dimensional sculptural things, which are then often articulated. This is the neck piece being worn by a person who bought it. It was a very lovely lady called Pam. Sorry, this is nice Kate. They're both very lovely. They're 2 of my best collectors. And this is being it's evolving. So this is animation I took the piece itself took about 120 hours. Yeah, so I took, you know, little animation of it kind of evolving, and you know, things change and bits come off, and it very much kind of evolves on the workbench. There we go.
That's absolutely wonderful. I love your work, Toby.
Thank you,
I don't really wear jewellery, but if I was going to wear jewellery, I would be definitely coming to you. It's fantastic.
Well, I don't wear a lot of it either, but I love making it for other people, you know, and I see its power, you know, as something that's being worn, and it's very personal for people, I think.
Yeah.
The textures that you get on the silver are amazing as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. Pam, did you want to go next with your
yes, I can do that. There we go. Okay, my sort of prime interest apart from art is bird watching, and if you come to my gallery during a conventional open studios, you're likely to be greeted by lots of images, different images of birds. It took me quite a long time to get the courage to do that, and I started off really more of a non-figurative artist. But then gradually I had all these sort of pieces around, like the one on the screen at the moment, and I started to feel that there was something missing. So I started to introduce, I suppose, silhouettes, but they are sort of more ghostly silhouettes really than what you would think of as a conventional silhouette. I work in tissue paper, which I dye and stain myself, either as a whole sheet, which I then cut and collage together to make the images, or sometimes I will use more of a monoprint technique to get a background. So the earlier piece you saw with the non-figurative one, that was a monoprint. I like to play and experiment with lots of different things. So some pieces take a long time to develop. These two blue panels, in and out of the blue, took me a long time to do before I wasn't quite sure where I was going. I also use photographs to inspire, and I will take sections of them to produce a final piece. But I never actually do a whole sort of realistic scene, if you like. Very fond of waders and water birds, so a lot of work is based on them at the moment. But I often have the background around, and then it will be hanging around my studio, and I'll work out what I want to put on it. So, but recently I started to do something a little bit different. I decided I was going to have a go at printing, so I decided to do photolithography. So photographic plate onto a transparency, and then I kept my fingers crossed and printed onto tissue paper, and it worked. And then I did monoprint background and combine the two together. So the next one that's going to come up is actually two photolithographs, one of Ripples and one of the Avocet, and then put together to produce a more abstract image. And that's where I'm up to at the moment.
That's absolutely gorgeous work.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Pam. No, I'm big fan of your work. I think the texture really comes across. It's amazing.
And I like the unpredictability of it as well. I've got a certain amount of control, but you can never quite tell where it's going to go until it dries.
Yes.
And then you screw it up and throw it in the bin and do another one.
I think that's one of the things about being an artist, having enough courage to just sort of throw things away, because people don't, do they? They get very precious about having made something, and that's one of the things that I do really quite like about the idea of make something. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, you've learned something. Carry on.
I suppose that's one of the advantages of working in tissue paper. It's cheap.
Yes. No,
I think Toby would probably be a bit more reluctant about throwing a piece of silver away.
I don't feel that way, but I can melt it down. It all gets melted down. And some ranges of work I do that. I just just use the recycled elements, like all the bits that come off the sheet silver, and just use that. Yeah.
No, wonderful. Sheila, we're going to have a look at your work now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So if you just bear with me, I shall share the screen for you. Here we go. Okay.
So this, as you can see, is my studio, and quite a lot of invertebrates that I work with printmaking, which I really enjoy. And as Pam says, it does have an unpredictable nature to it. This is from a bumblebee, a garden bumblebee. Relief printmaking. It's a lino cut, and this is a fly that I've then hand tinted to give it a bit more atmosphere, a bit more individualistic image. And this third one is a beetle, a sexton beetle, that I've shaded the background to give it a context and to make it look more three-dimensional. So this is some photography out in the field. Like most people working with live things, you've got to bring them to a state of stillness so that you can observe them a bit better and work from them. So this is laying eggs, and this is an adult just displaying those fantastic wings, fantastic bodies that they have. And this is from Manchester Museum, where I've been working. It's part of the collection, and you can see in the centre the pin that's securing it down. And it shows the fantastic structures, very strong, robust structures that is the anatomy of the dragonfly. So from those, I wanted to produce some lino cuts, and this is in the process of cutting. It's quite large, which you can tell from the size of the tools. Very sharp tools. It's quite sculptural, actually, cutting into lino, which I like. I like the sort of resistance that it gives. And this was a part of the print that I then hand tint. So this is a broad-bodied chaser, so very particular markings and colours. And this is the finished print that I've then added shadow to lift it from the background. And it's going to be part of a mural that I did for Manchester Museum, that was, this is the female of the broad-bodied chaser. You can see the body and the colour of the abdomen is quite different to the male. They're very striking dragonflies. And this is the larval stage. They go through an aquatic period, can be 2 or 3 years, as they develop from an egg and sequentially grow, shedding their exoskeletons as they grow, until they're then ready to leave the water. They climb up something rigid, and then the dragonfly emerges. It's not my photo. I've never actually seen it live, but it's unbelievable that the dragonfly can emerge from this small casing, and it pumps itself up and hardens in the air, so that then it's fully emergent and dries out and is a functioning adult dragonfly. This is Manchester Museum, where this mural was put up to in the entrance to an exhibition called Beauty and the Beast, and which was all about invertebrates and had a mix of cultural objects and specimens from their collection. It's pretty amazing working with their collections, because they don't just have one beetle, they will have hundreds of the same sort of beetle, showing all the variations of size and very specifically about the anatomy. So here you can see both the male and the female sexual apparatus from the adult beetle. And this is a sexton, but a different sexton. It has a very colourful back, but it's one of my own specimens, and of course is in a lot better condition, a lot cleaner. It's not 150 years old, which is some of the Manchester's collections are. This is the actual outer casing incredibly vivid colours and beautifully beautifully crafted. Reminds me of Toby's Toby's jewellery, actually, the way it's been hammered out. Yeah, so this was the lino cut that I did, that I'm then I've worked with to create a model. There's something about the beetles, they actually rely on flight, but it's very, very seldom that you see a beetle with its wings extended. So I made a model, and the wings are actually very carefully folded like a piece of origami and inside the casings. And so I made an articulated model that then I could reproduce movement and reproduce the flight mechanism. And this was my piece that really was an extension of the museum's collections, and that would then house that beetle so that it was capable of flight. And I then created an animation. This is one of the final shots from the animation, which I hope is now going to be shown.
That is absolutely wonderful.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
There was some very lovely music that went with that, but unfortunately not to be heard. A lot of fun in the making.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah. What is the music, by the way?
It's by someone called Phil Taylor. Yeah, you have to listen to it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, so my turn to do the show and tell. So hopefully this is all going to be straightforward, because I've got things all over the screen at the minute. Okay. Oh, that's tricky. I think I'm showing all sorts of bits of screen. So I'll actually start on the second image. So I'm going to just flick back, because I thought I'd start with my signature piece. I'm probably best known for my bronzes now. I've been 10 or 11 years making bronzes. I started as a ceramic sculptor. Well, I started as a potter 20-something years ago, and then fairly quickly just got into making the animal sculpture. So I'll just run through a couple of my bronze geckos. I do all sorts of different patinations. I like taking photos of putting them into locations. So I make an awful lot of colourful frogs. Dart frogs are something that I'm absolutely fascinated by. They're just so astounding. I can spend literally hours just flicking around on Instagram looking at pictures of dart frogs. So I've made quite a few. Anyway, some turtles that I made hatching out of their egg. Oh, more frogs. I think I've gone out of sequence with these. That's a limited edition common frog. It's quite a hefty piece. It's about as big as you would get a common frog. So a good handful of frog, and the weight of the bronze is just absolutely fantastic. That's one of my pottery ones. As I say, I started as a ceramic sculptor, and occasionally I find time to sort of play around. They're really faffy to make, though, so it's not something that I do very often. I need to find time where I feel like I'm playing and I can do things like that. Mrs. Toad, probably my most popular of the limited edition bronzes. I think there's something about the attitude, it's that look on her face. She is definitely meaning business. Bats, I've made quite a few bats in my time. People that are into bats are really into bats. So I meet a lot of people when I'm out and about at events. Well, when I do get out and about at events, that's not happening this year at all, which is very strange. That's more of my pipistrelle. And again, in ceramic as well. Some bronze chameleons. I'd give a shout out to my friend Martin Stevenson, who I know will be watching, because he gave me those bits of wood for those chameleons. It's a great thing about getting on the circuit of craft fairs and art fairs. You meet all sorts of different people, and things like offcuts to somebody are absolutely wonderful to use for yourself. That's another of my location shots. Quite a few there. I've got to give a shout out to Nigel Coop as well, the chairmaker, because he's given me a lot of little blocks of wood, which I've been using. That's one of my hermit crabs. That's a very small one, and a bit larger. That's the crab, I think, has outgrown his shell there, but still a nice sculpture. He's definitely looking for another shell. I'll be working on that one soon. I wanted to find some pictures of my beetles, because we seem to have a bit of a theme, don't we, this afternoon? Yeah, beetles, arthropods, it's all amazing stuff. That's my one of my praying mantids. Quite a close-up. I'd like to sculpt oversized with these, because the level of detail you can get, well, I dare say you could do it on a very small scale, but it would be incredibly difficult. Those little guys are just hatchling tortoises. That's the grown-up version. That's an Egyptian tortoise, probably slightly over life size, actually. That's one of my limited edition pieces. And seahorses. I've been working a lot with seahorses. Made some last year in ceramic. The fins are beaten copper, which I've then stuck into stoneware ceramic, and in this case I've mounted them on copper that I've beaten out into the shape of seagrass and then patinated. So it's quite a delicate sculpture, and I haven't got a video. I wish I'd got a video of this, because they sort of wobble around. They're so finely balanced. It takes absolutely nothing, and they just sort of bounce around. Some of the craft events that I do are on sprung wooden floors, which is a nightmare because everything moves. But the seahorses are about the only thing that I make where it looks absolutely brilliant, because if I've got a row of them, somebody walks by and they all go badoing, 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 and they just bounce around on their seagrass. I like that kind of sculpture. I'd really like to do more of it. Oh, there's a salamander at the end. I wasn't expecting that, but I think that is the end of my my little show and tell. So I'm going to
thank you,
come
John.
out of that. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope everyone watching this has enjoyed all of our work, because we've got a lot of themes in common, I think, and just do different things with them. It's interesting, isn't it? The way that we do sort of diverge and do different things. Anyway, shall we get into a bit of a discussion about the stuff we've seen? Hannah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that you do spend so much time in polar regions. You are probably quite aware of what effects that has. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that there are people starting to see what's happening in polar regions with the kind of tours that you're part of?
Yeah, there's the obvious conflict of like traveling and just travel generally, doing long flights and getting on cruise ships, which, you know, you could say we shouldn't be going at all. But some of the places I go to have a very small impact from humans, in fact, other than, there's the kind of global, everything connected impact, but the actual footprint of humans on the ground is very, very small. And it's actually feel that it's quite good to show people it and people to see it for themselves. And a lot of the people we're taking are kind of quite influential and quite well off, advocate. Because especially Antarctica, it's got this amazing, unique governance, and it's kind of it's for the globe. It has it doesn't belong to a country. Antarctica, it's got its own treaty that governs it, and it just means that it in some ways it makes it safe, but it also makes it vulnerable because there is no one really overseeing it, and there's obviously scientific bases that different nations have. And sometimes scientists mess around a little bit. It's kind of like this idea that scientists are always good. But actually, I think sometimes scientists, they have their aims are not always as benign as you might think. And I think that having tourism visitors just looking around and being there does kind of mean that there is other eyes on the place, as well as it just being left to national programs. There is this kind of global view, and as I say, we can create ambassadors who will then advocate for Antarctica especially, and it's also a way. Now we do quite a lot of citizen science on the trips that I do, so we're taking images of glaciers and we're doing monitoring because we're going time after time. We do monitoring a little bit as well of the environment as we go.
Do you think the treaties would be more vulnerable if people weren't going to see what's happening then? Do you think that reinforces the fact that we need to keep these areas pristine? Because I know there's a lot of pressure for oil to be extracted in regions that are really quite dangerous to be taking oil from, and the consequences of spillage are absolutely massive. And I guess that's part of what the treaty's about, isn't it? Like trying to stop that.
Yeah, well, down in Antarctica, there is a complete ban on any commercial exploitation, mining-wise. But that is going to be up for renewal. It was like a 50-year ban. And I think it's still got another 30-odd years to run. But there's, so that, there is that fear that things could change. And it doesn't take, you kind of think of the global situation now with different people in government and who are maybe slightly less conservation or less sustainably minded, and you just feel that actually it's quite good if there's a lot of relatively influential people who will actually see it and say we shouldn't have mining there, we shouldn't have exploitation. So it's kind of but it is also just it does feel I do feel extremely privileged that I do get to go and get to see it, and especially year after year.
Yeah,
but it is changing as well, though. So.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. Talking about mining, that puts me in mind of some of the stuff that we've talked about, Toby, and we've got very similar ideas about using metals and resources that we're taking from the earth. Do you want to say a little bit about how you feel about use of metals and how you sort of square that with your environmental ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole jewelry industry, has had a horrible past, and just to get the raw metal out of the earth, it's a huge amount of waste and chemicals used and slave labor. So it's kind of like that's the history of a lot of the precious things that come out of the ground for the sake of humans to sort of adorn themselves. So there's that's I don't feel comfortable with that. What I do is I use all materials that have been recycled. So I use eco silver and eco gold, fair trade gems, and a lot of stuff I do is actually just recycled anyway. So I make wedding rings using customers' own gold.
All right, that's brilliant. Yeah.
So pretty much I'm able just to stick, I don't need to buy fresh materials. But there's probably, there's more that all of us can be doing, reaching out for, recycled materials, and trying to, seek other ways of doing things. We don't have to make things out of silver and gold just because they have done in the past, things change.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to do my bit with using, and you know, as a small business, we're just trying to, you know, we can keep things small. We can, you know, create sustainable businesses, I think, you know, and be environmentally kind of sound, you know. I use all recycled packaging and that sort of thing, you know, so I think we can each do our bit as well, and then still create the things that we want to make.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think it is incredibly important that we all do our bit. We're on renewable energy. I know that you are, Hannah. You are as well, Toby. Yeah. I think we all think about that kind of stuff, definitely. And I think we can only encourage everyone to sort of switch to renewable energy, definitely, recycled materials. And just thinking about stuff, because it seems that unless we, the public, generally lead things, it isn't really getting led very well by government. There's too much vested interest in sort of big companies that have got a lot of wealth and a lot of power. So I think it's very important that we all do our bit. I mean, I'm also, with my concern about metals, that's one of the things I like about bronze, that you don't get bronze made from freshly mined metals. It's over 95% copper, and it's too valuable to be sticking into bronze, which is an alloy. So that's all recycled. Okie dokie. Sheila, aspects of the environment that you find inspiring, how do you reflect that in your work?
Well, I suppose some of the projects that I've had, they've been quite particular sort of habitats. So I did a project on a farm and did a project with an endangered spider, which was in wetlands, and yeah, but obviously living in this environment, we've got moorland habitat, and so the sort of work I do, I try and research with someone who has more expertise than me. So with the endangered spider, I work with a woman who managed the conservation project, and also outreached people who would know about the geology and whatever might be impacting on that spider. And so often when anything is endangered or under threat, it's because of habitat loss, and habitat loss is usually because of what we're doing, either in water extraction or intensive farming, or just straightening out rivers so that they shoot water down at speed and scour out all the silt, and so that it becomes a major highway for water, rather than a slow meander that then preserves these other habitats. So I quite like getting quite immersed in a project, so that it's like a slow burn, and I do several, I do quite a bulk of work that reflects all the different issues. So for first, say, the spider, there was a lot about its anatomy and how actually a spider functions, because these things are minute and we don't naturally have an understanding of what their lives are like. And it's always essential to sort of scale them up a bit so that we can actually see what's going on with them. And then it's more engaging if you can actually see and understand the actual creature, not much better, but then to do some of the interaction that needs to engage with or raise awareness of about the habitat and what its actual needs are for life cycle, or needs are because there's some sort of mutualistic relationship going on. You can't have a bee without the flower or the pollen. A lot of the bees are very specifically, they've evolved specifically to fit in different flower structures. So, you can't just have a monoculture one sort of flower. You need the biodiversity of a flower meadow, or wildlife corridors, or, you know, all of these things that now we are feeling the effects of the lack of. I think, you know, I just want to be part of trying to raise an awareness.
Yes, I think it's absolutely crucial, and that's something that I wanted to discuss, the idea of I think we can make work that is much more explicit about environmental degradation, habitat loss, species loss, mass extinction. I've made some pieces like that, but I don't do very many, because mostly I've got to make a living, and people don't want to buy things about dead polar bears or, or things that aren't so sort of pleasing to look at. I don't know what you feel about whether art that's about these kind of species and animals, whether just raising the awareness that they're there and they're fantastic, does that you think that makes people think?
Well, I suppose what I like to do is to have some way of engaging an audience, and it has to be said that as I've been able to get grants to work, or I've got to supplement it with a pension or whatever, I don't need to sell as much work, and for sure it's very hard to plug those issues through your work when you need to sell it. You are restricted, but I think as you and Toby were talking, you know, when people are approaching you about the work, you can talk about the materials you use, and that there is a general awareness of the impact that you can have as an artist on the environment. And for me, you know, I can choose whether I work quite directly with those issues in the forefront, or whether they're embedded surreptitiously, and it needs a discussion. You know, I do like to have means of engaging with the audience, and I think that's one of the hardest things. You can put static images, but that doesn't create a discussion, that doesn't give the broad background that often sits behind the work, or specifically the images we produce.
Yeah. Mostly with my work, I feel that in terms of raising any awareness of the damage we're doing to ecosystems and mass extinction, etc., it's more a question of talking with people as they sort of pick up one of my pieces at an event, because I meet thousands of people doing the events that I normally do. And you know, it's good to be able to get into those conversations. You know, people like those animals, and they like the work that you do. And if you can get a conversation going where it makes them think about it, that we are losing them, that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really know if the rest of you do events normally. Have you been, you know, has your work pattern changed because of this year's problems?
Is that for me?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I sell almost entirely through craft fairs, you know.
Yeah.
So this year's been complete, you know, just one by one, they'll all be cancelled, you know, up till, you know, next year.
Yeah, I mean, exactly the same boat.
Online, you know, and but I really miss that connection with the public, and I think I get so much feedback, and people respond, I think, so much better to my work when, you know, I'm able to talk about it with people, rather than when it's just, you know, in a gallery actually, or, you know, online. I think it kind of needs that discussion, and people need to see it move, and people need to handle it, and I think they like to keep talking to the artist as well. So, yeah, these things are missed, I think. Yeah.
Pam, where do you exhibit? Are you mainly through galleries, or do you go out and about?
I don't. I'm very bad at getting out there. And if nothing else, what this year has taught me is that I've got to do that. I've got to get out, put my work out and about into different places. I rely very heavily on open studios, and I feel as if I've been cut off completely this year, really. So in some ways it's been very good for me this year, because it has made me aware of what I've got to do, and it is that communication with people. Being able to discuss what you're doing, what's in the images, where it's coming from. I've never really produced anything that is overtly environmental, apart from just one piece which skipped by in my little film, which was hen harriers as ghosts, really, against the background of burning moorland. Sort of ban the burn was something that was very evident in Hebden Bridge a few years ago.
Very much so, yeah.
And I'm not going to go off on one about hen harriers, so don't worry too much.
No, do. You've got an audience.
It is, as a bird watcher and environmental activist, I suppose, I feel so strongly about what we as humans do to the natural environment, and I think it's vital that people are made aware of it. But again, you have got that issue of whether you can do it in your art without sort of ramming it down people's throats, as it were. So I think it's something that has to be tackled quite carefully, and on quite a personal thing. And it's a lot easier to do it when you're talking to somebody. People do produce sort of wonderful environmental pieces. I've encountered a couple of poems in different art form, but that really sort of put it across very well. There was one by Mike Harding. Remember the Rochdale Cowboy?
Yeah.
A poem called "Things You Will Never Know," and it's about the things that he was around him as a child that his grandchildren are just not going to experience because they've got a McDonald's built on them or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think art has very definitely got a role. I think a raising awareness, really. Because one thing that artists are good at is seeing what's around you.
Yeah.
And putting that image out there and just starting it as a seed, really, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking if I made a couple of pieces last year, which were polythene sort of wrapped around a large stone to look like it was sort of flowing in the water, and then there's a little seahorse. This is how I started making the ceramic seahorses that I've been making. They were sort of like clinging onto the end of it, so it looked like this beautiful object of seaweed or seagrass sort of flowing in the current, and the seahorses on the end. And it's only when you start looking more closely, it's like, it's just polythene. Because I was trying to say something about the fact there's so much polythene in the environment everywhere. I find it hard to. I know there are artists that are able to find time to purely make these kind of statement pieces. I struggle with that. I need this. One of the things I've learned from this year, finding balance where you can make the work that sells, that makes you a living, because I'm a professional artist, I have to do that, but to be able to find time as well where you can just make statements and you can make things that are from your heart about what you believe in. So I hope I'm going to be able to do more of that, because I think things will change after this year. I don't think things will ever quite go back to being the same that they were.
No, and I think certainly on a local basis, people seem to have got out a lot more into their own neighbourhoods. People were walking out locally during lockdown, and the number of people I met out and about on a walk and sort of saying, "Wow, it's really lovely down here, isn't it?" I live in Rochdale, and think of it as somewhere nice to go for a walk. They'll go up to the Lake District or whatever, but we've got superb bluebell woods as well.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, no, we are very lucky living in Hebden Bridge. That's one of the things that I mean, I've had a very busy day trying to sort things out that I've been doing, but still managed a half an hour walk earlier on in the day, and it's just on the top straight away. Toby, you're a runner, aren't you?
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean that's what first inspired me. That's what started me running, really. And it was just wanting to get out into the environment, you know, and you end up going quicker and quicker. And yeah, no, but it's you know, in 20 minutes you're up on the tops, you know, and looking down, and yeah, you just I think I need that, you know, after being at the bench all day or whatever, you know. Yeah,
I try and do it every day. I try and get out, even if it is literally just a half-hour walk.
Yeah.
But I mean, are we all in a similar sort of position that we all work alone? Because I'm in my workshop all day and I don't see anyone. That's one of the things I like about going out to do events, is you get to sort of take it out and you get to go and meet people and meet other makers. I've
been until I mean, I'm still based at Brooklyn Studio, but I was in a little studio that was sort of locked away from the more communal area, and I've just literally in the last couple of weeks moved back into the communal area. I'm looking forward to that, just having other people around me when I'm working, shut off in a little. I've got a room at home that I can shut myself off in if I want to, so it's nice being around, having other people, other creative people around as well.
Hannah, you were in Brooklyn, weren't you? So you've moved to your own workshop now. I guess you've had so many changes. It's a bit different this year from because I know you spend months away at sea, and then you come back and you can do a few weeks or months here.
Yeah, that's right. It's quite a change, but I suppose when I'm away, I'm very sociable because I'm 24/7 with people, so I'm kind of when I'm home, I'm sort of, it's sometimes quite nice to be a bit quieter, but I've been enjoying working from home, but mostly because I've just got a nice environment right at home with a garden. I can bird watch right from home, right from my house. I've got a dog now as well, that is kind of, so it's but it has been quite a change not having my usual extremely sociable periods of time, because although I'm in these very wild places, very wild environments, I'm actually on a ship with 140 other people, so it's kind of and there's a sort of family of the crew, but then the passengers change, so yeah, it's a slightly different world that I'm in as well. So I am missing a bit of that social side, and and talking and just sort of educating people as well, because part of what I do, as well as being doing the wildlife art, a lot of what I do is doing direct natural education for people about the wildlife and what they're seeing and the environment.
Sheila, I know you've been spending a lot of time in Manchester Museum. Is that something that you were doing and was stopped by COVID, or so I got that slightly back to front? Had you already come to an end of that work, or
it would have been ongoing, but obviously had to stop. But more in terms of the research going into their collections and working directly with those. I think they have now reopened, and so probably the animation can then be added to some work that will be shown at a later date.
Right.
But the Arts Council grant that I got was for research. It wasn't specifically to work with Manchester Museum, and so my research can continue, and at some point I expect I'll work again with other museums in the Northwest as was planned. But luckily beetles just crawl in the door, don't they? Or flies, drop off the wall. So I'm not thwarted too much in terms of what I'm able to work with.
I love your choice of subject. The fact that, you know, it's not cutesy wildlife art, but it is absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Once you start looking at things like a fly, they're amazing.
They are absolutely incredible, yeah. And just working out how they make the noises they make, and you know, and how do they manage all their legs and things like that, or their compound eyes. It's phenomenal, phenomenal. No wonder, you know, science fiction has loved them, really.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I thought you were talking there, Toby. You lit up.
Oh yes, I know.
Have you been busy at Northlight this weekend? Did you get people? Because there's not many of us are actually able to be open at the moment. I know some of the group studios are by appointment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had a few visitors by appointment, you know, and then yeah, so we all, there was only 3 or 4 of us doing the open studios, so a few people up, and they've all said, you know, they're just really missing it, and they just have to come along and see whoever they could see, you know, because they just really wanted to, you know, I think it's a big part of the community, isn't it, you know, being able to look around and, you know,
absolutely.
people just wandering around trying to see if they can go anywhere else as well, you know, to Brooklyn or anything as well.
Yeah.
No, the artistic community in Hebden Bridge is absolutely essential, isn't it? I mean, I've said it before, we're a very small town, but we've got a lot of artists, and it is quite phenomenal when we have the Open Studios event as usual. So it is a real shame that we've not been able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's been absolutely wonderful talking to you all. Sheila, were you just saying something there?
No, I wasn't actually, but I can say thank you very much, John.
It is slightly tricky, isn't it? Having a conversation by Zoom, there are extraneous noises, and it's it is.
Yeah.
If this is the future, it's a bit clunky. But we're getting there. We've managed to do something, which I think is wonderful. So. No, it's been really enjoyable having a chat with you all, seeing the work. So I hope that next year we'll be doing Open Studios as usual, where we get lots of people visiting, and we'll find time to do this kind of thing over the top of that as well, because it is great how it just widens the audience that of people that can see what we're doing. So it's great. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, John.